Hi everyone, I'm Zaynah Dargaye, an engineering manager at Nomadic Labs working on project related to the Tezos Layer 1. Today we are diving into a major evolution of the Tezos Proof-of-Stake foundations, Adaptive Issuance and the new staking mechanism. This change refines how staking, incentives and decentralization work. The previous model had limitation in reflecting accurately the economic security. To put it simple, liquid delegated states were not put at stake. We needed a system where the staking power was more representative of what was really at risk in the world economy. And that requires having a mechanism to adjust dynamically the issuance to the staking ratio so that we avoid unnecessary inflation. Adaptive issuance and the new staking mechanism has been introduced in the Paris Protocol and refined in the Quebec one. To break it down, I am joined by Randazzo, who played a key role in the design and implementations of those two features in Tezos. Welcome, Luca.
Thank you, Zaynah. Hi, everyone.
Can you give an overview on the staking mechanism?
So staking is this new mechanism that we introduced in Paris. A staker is basically between a baker and a delegator. It's not a baker as it doesn't produce blocks, but it still participates in the security of the chain by putting its own funds at risk of being slashed. So a staker is basically a delegator that decides to take some of its liquid funds and put them frozen. So to incentivize delegators from becoming stakers, we are also providing them with more benefits, like more rewards. And also, for delegations, as you might know, bakers have to distribute the delegation rewards as a transaction on chain. But for stakers, this distribution of rewards is done automatically by the protocol. We also introduced this new system that is Adaptive Issuance. This system incentivizes staking while trying to balance the security on the chain and the liquid circulation.
You said that staker is a new rule. What happened with delegators' rule?
So the role of delegator will still exist. Now delegators will have the option to stake a part of their funds. And this is the way that they can accrue rewards immediately on their account. These funds will be at risk of being slashed. So this is a risk that some delegators might not want to take. That and also these frozen funds are not liquid. It will take some time before they become liquid by issuing an Unstake request. However, we tried to make this new staker appealing for delegators. For instance, we modified the behavior of slashing. Before, we always slash the same amount regardless of the misbehavior on the consensus operations. Now we have changed the slashing behavior to be more appealing to delegators that want to be stakers. So before we always slash the same amount regardless of the misbehavior on the consensus operations. But now we try to distinguish between malicious attacks and honest mistakes. And we slash only a smaller amount of Tez for small bakers, for instance, while the maximum amount of slashing happens only when a lot of bakers try to attack the chain at the same time.
That was the original propositions introduced in Paris, and then comes Quebec with some adjustment. Can you explain the adjustments that Quebec features?
So during the development of the feature, we realized at around the end of Paris and for the development of Quebec, that issuance might become too high, even though the stake ratio almost reached the goal, like for instance 40%, while our goal is 50%. In that case, the issuance could still reach high values which were undesirable regarding the original design of the feature. So we decided to add this adaptive maximum, which ensures that if we are close enough to the goal, the issuance cannot go over a certain threshold.
What was the biggest technical challenges along this project?
I believe one of the biggest challenges was to add this new role of staker. So before we started developing this, so before Oxford, the protocol had to compute itself the amount of Tez that was frozen. It depended for each baker on the amount of delegation it had. But now, and with this feature, we had to ask individually each baker and staker to freeze a precise amount of Tez. At the same time, we needed to make this feature and these new operations as simple as possible for users, and also keep the behavior of slashing as accurate as possible. All of these changes also needed to be included within Tezos self-amendment process over 3 protocol upgrades, and we need to make sure that all these changes were as smooth as possible and accepted across all the ecosystem.
Specifically about this last point, how do you manage to make it smooth?
So the development, as I said, was over 3 protocol upgrades. It was Oxford, then Paris, then Quebec. In Oxford, we didn't enable users to use the feature yet, but we already started the work behind the scenes. And basically, as I said before, we had to change things that were done automatically. We needed to make them manual. So we needed to implement some systems that were automatically staking instead of having the protocol do it. So yeah, we implemented what we call that auto staking. Then for Paris, we had the activation of Adaptive Issuance. And this means that the issuance on chains would change. But we didn't want to have any radical changes in issuance. So we took the issuance we had in Oxford and prior, and we decided that the range of issuance for a couple of weeks after the start of Adaptive Issuance would be very small around that value. And then over a couple of months, this range would increase to finally reach its final values. And finally, in Quebec, we also made some final adjustments. So first, we had the change of constant for staking over baking. So basically, for every baker, it can only accept an amount of staking that is proportional to its own staking. Before Quebec, it was 5, this coefficient, and in Quebec, it is now 9. And we also changed the power of delegation over staking. So delegation for baking power is worth a bit less than staking. In Paris, it was half of staking, and in Quebec, it would be a third.
Dealing with staking is quite critical. What methodology you'd put in place to make sure the implementation was safe?
Firstly, we had security audits, both internal and external. Given the length of the project, it spanned over a year, we had a lot of opportunities to have people look at the project and give criticism to it. And we took advantage of that. Secondly, we also made a lot of testing, like internal testing. We developed some sort of model-based testing that was specifically made for these functionalities. Because given all the internal changes that we made, we needed to make sure that no regressions were happening. And then we also needed to check that all the interactions between all the mechanisms in the protocol were actually behaving properly. Because of the framework of tests, we were able to basically design some scenarios that might not be obvious when looking at the code. So, and as a last safety net, basically, we have the Testnets, which allow us to test our features in basically live conditions. And thanks to the users that are on there, we're able to have some real behaviors on a real chain. And this allows us to catch some issues. Most importantly, the user issues like UI and UX.
What is your principal takeaway personally during this project?
Yeah, this project was quite fun to work on it. I had the opportunity to work with a lot of people. It was really great. I could see a lot of new things, both in the protocol and also outside of it. Alright, so now that Adaptive Issuance and the new staking model are live, what is next for Tezos staking?
What we are doing is trying to improve the UX of the staking. One track that we have is to allow multisig or threshold signature of staking operations. Also, a second important thing to take into account is this famous time of locking when you want to have back your fund. So we are working at reducing this time, which is quite an important work to do, as is touch every business logic of the protocol and important properties. Adaptive issuance and the new staking are now the new proof of stake of Tezos. It is already on mainnet. There is no real reason to not staking on Tezos. So thank you, Luca, for this discussion. We hope you enjoy these sessions and stay tuned.